Hey everyone, I'm Niranjani and I'm currently working as the engineering manager at Hippo Insurance. For those of you who don't know about Hippo, Hippo offers home insurance that covers people's homes, possessions, as well as liability from accidents happening in the insured property. In this atomic talk, we will be investigating a case study which will help you to debug issues quickly by leveraging the right tools. We will analyze a case, come up with a prognosis, and finally validate it by looking at the logs. So, this case study is about one of my friends who has an online store whose customers suddenly started seeing HTTP 500 errors while adding items to their online cart. Knowing my quality background, my friend reached out to me for help. A server displays a HTTP 500 error or internal server error when it cannot process a request that should be correct in principle. Now let's come up with a prognosis to figure out what could have possibly gone wrong, shall we? So this famous 500 error is the web server's way of saying, oops, an error has occurred, but we can't tell you anything more. This is known as a server-side problem. There are n number of reasons why a HTTP 500 error would show up on an e-commerce website, but for the scope of this discussion, let's narrow it down to three different categories. Now, I do remember my friend mentioning that they migrated from a monolithic architecture to a microservice-based one recently. So either the cart service or the purchase service could have been down. Basically, they could have run into an unexpected condition, or it could have been a database error where the item ID wasn't in the expected format, or they could have just gone through a SQL injection attack. Now, in order to definitively state the cause of this issue, we need tools. So log data contains information such as out-of-memory exceptions or hard disk errors. This is very helpful information that will help us identify the why behind a problem, either a problem that has been brought to us by our users or something that we uncovered. Hence, information provided by logging and monitoring tools are essential to debug issues and do root cause analysis or postmortems of production issues. Now, when your applications are installed across numerous microservices and each service is logging data, you need to be able to identify and track an end user issue across the entire microservice architecture. Having to look through multiple log files from multiple systems or query for the timestamps across multiple services to find out why a user is experiencing slowness can take a while. And that time is money that your organization is losing. There are a lot of popular tools out there. Again, for the scope of this discussion, I'm going to be limiting ourselves to specific tools like Loggly, Splunk, and Elk. And these tools allow you to aggregate, store, search, and visualize your log data. Now, Prometheus is an open source time series monitoring tool whose metrics are stored in a time series database. And AWS CloudWatch basically stores console logs, and Grafana is a graphical dashboard that gives you information from multiple data sources like Prometheus, AWS CloudWatch, BigQuery, and Loggly. Now, how do we solve this case? Let's quickly look at Loggly, okay? So as you can see, this is the interface of Loggly, and we're looking at the data from the past 24 hours, and there are around 85,000 events. Again, this is a lot of data, so let's narrow down because my friend mentioned this all happened in the past hour. So I'm just going to filter that out, and that still shows us 3,000 events or so. And we do know that it's a HTTP 500 error. So let's do apache.status 500. Okay, that's good. We narrowed down to 200 events. And as part of our prognosis, we mentioned that this could be an error caused due to the cart service or the purchase service, right? So let's see if any of those could be, which one of those would be the root cause. So let's do derive.url. I'm using wildcard here, cart service. Okay, that's helpful. Now we know it's not cart service. So let's try purchase service. Okay, great. Almost all of those 200 events are caused by purchase service. Now let's look at one of these logs even further. As you can see, we have a user ID, and then we also have item IDs here, and then there is some syslog. So let's try to figure out if this was caused by a specific user, okay? Or if this error exists only within a specific user. Okay, that's not the case. That's just pertaining to one single event. So let's go back. There is an item ID. So I'm going to try and add the item ID. So this is derive dot item ID. This is basically parameters, and that contains 434343. Okay, there you go. So what this means is there are basically there is this specific item ID. Whenever these 200 different users tried adding this item to their cart, the item went missing and it threw a HTTP 500 error. So this was the root cause. So now the development team can potentially look into, maybe this item ID was malformed and that's why it didn't get inserted into the database, throwing this HTTP 500 error. Okay, now let's go back. So we just solved this case. Now for the key takeaways. Now, in conclusion, you may want to become an expert with JSON searches, filters, and pattern matching while using these logging tools. And in our case study, we chose a specific time period and we were trying to narrow down discrete events related to HTTP 500 error. So knowledge of logging and monitoring tools can help you stay informed about the underlying architecture on top of which your product was built. For the scope of this talk, we restricted ourselves to logs, but in the real world, you may want to switch between application logs and console logs to continue debugging and find the culprit. Hope you enjoyed investigating the case of the missing item with me. Stay curious. Thank you.